Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and right over there is Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, Pete Wright.
Hello, Nikki Kinzer.
How are you? How are you? I asked you first.
I'm good. It's the end of a crazy week. It's a crazy week. And
it is.
Yeah, it's been crazy. This time of year, I've got this major short film production project kind of every year. It's an annual thing, and it looks like today is the last big day of editing, and that is very, very good because I'm tired and it is overwhelming and lots of little details, and I spend most of the day in the dark. I'm ready to not do that anymore. And I haven't seen any movies, and I haven't left the house, and I'm ready. I need some air. The weather's beautiful, and I'm not taking advantage of it. So no, I'm ready to.
You need to get out of your cave.
It is, but the nice thing is there's a hard line. Like when this is done, it'll be in our little theater for this big event next Friday. So that's kind of the hard line. Everything's done. And I feel like summer starts.
Good.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
That's always fun. Love summer.
Love the summer. How are you? Mm-hmm. You doing well?
I'm doing great. Yeah. I've had a good week. Not too busy, not slow. Just doing
your thing.
Just doing the thing. It's busy with the kids, right? Because it's just the end of the school year, so they've got a bunch of stuff going on.
Oh, there are events.
Events. Yeah, it's going good.
Look, we're going to talk about something fantastic this week that was, I have to tell you, it was totally new. It came up in the Facebook group, FOLI, and I have talked about this to...
Actually, I think this was a listener of the podcast. I don't even think it was from the podcast group, was it? I thought it came through an email.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, I think it came through an email. And I think what it is, we're creating a new thing.
Well, I think she just, she invented, she did. We're not, she did. Credit where credit is due. It's amazing. Yeah. And I have talked about it with a number of my dear friends and colleagues who also live with ADHD and resonated with it like that. Like it was absolutely, I get it. Totally get it. I can't wait to talk about it. Before we do that, head over to takecontroladhd.com. Get to know us a little bit better. You can listen to the show on the website or subscribe to the mailing list, and we'll send you an email every time a new episode is released. You can connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at takecontroladhd. And, thank you everybody who has already considered their options to support us over on patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. We sure appreciate that, and you're absolutely helping us to reach our goals. This is podcasting is an endeavor like any other thing that costs us. There are costs associated with it, and to come to you every single week, it adds up. And so our first goal is just to cover our costs of producing the show. And so with every donation, with every subscription, you are helping us to support continuing to do this show. If you've been touched by the work that we have done in the past, we sure appreciate you considering touching us back with your dollars. It helps us keep going. So thank you so much for that. Okay. Just a little bit of news, brief news. Can I plug? You can.
Right. Plug away, my friend.
Look,
plug away.
I got this other show, this other show. What's That Smell? It's one of the other shows that I do, and it's about anxiety specifically. And it is, if you haven't listened to it, we try to be funny. We try to help people laugh about their anxieties. And we just finished season 1. We did 12 episodes of season 1, and I'm telling you, I learned a ton. And the episode that went live last week, our final episode of season 1, was kind of a retrospective. What did we learn about our anxieties? What did we learn about kind of living in the world with other people who have anxiety? And it was a real eye-opener for me and my co-host Tommy to do this, and we're very excited to do another season starting up in the fall. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, I encourage you to do so. You can search in iTunes for What's That Smell, or you can visit rashpixel.fm, and it's right on the homepage there, and with all the buttons to subscribe wherever you need to subscribe. So thanks for checking it out, everybody. We appreciate that. On
and it's fantastic.
Do you think?
I love it. And I love it's funny because you and I get a lot of compliments about our rapport and how well we like jive together, on this show. And you and Tommy are fantastic. Same way. I mean, you guys just really like play off of each other. And, I'm learning things about you, Pete, that I didn't know about. Because I'm listening to the show, and some of his one-liners are just so funny. I mean, I really enjoy both of you. It's really fun to listen to you guys kind of banter back and forth.
Oh, that's very kind. I'll tell you, the highlight for me is hearing him talk about ants. He had to hold that to the very last anxiety episode because he just couldn't talk about ants. He hates them. And I have been thinking about him saying, "Suck it, ants, no one likes you," and going on a rant about how terrible ants are for weeks and weeks. So I hope others get a chuckle out of it. We've sure had a lot of fun doing it. And so thank you. Anyway, okay, let's talk about summer coaching.
No. Yeah. Oh, good. I thought you were going to go straight to the topic. I'm like, I have another announcement.
No, this one's big.
All right, good. Well, enrollment is open now, right? So the last couple of weeks I've been talking about summer coaching, and it is up on the website where you can enroll. And the deadline to sign up is June 29th because these groups will start on the week of July 9th. And for the summer, they are 8 weeks. So it's 8 group sessions, plus a lot of contact in between sessions, and then one individual coaching session with me as well. And we have 3 different groups right now that you can sign up for. And so yes, we will have the link in the show notes, and we will also have just go straight to the website. Go to Take Control ADHD and go under group coaching. And in fact, actually, as we're talking about this, Pete, I would love for you to change the front panel on the front page of the website so they can just do it right there. Sign up for group coaching.
Right.
Make it really easy. Yeah. See, yes. I think of these things as I talk.
You do. And you're just, it's firecrackers. It's always happening for you. Always
crazy. So
neurons
creative.
Firing all the,
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah, so that's my announcement. So now we can talk about FOLI. What's FOLI?
Oh my gosh. Can I read this?
Oh, I would love you. Yeah.
I gotta read this. It's amazing. Okay. I have a question, or maybe more of a topic suggestion. Now, I finally know why I have started and abandoned so many projects, jobs, self-owned businesses, even friends. It's not that I always failed. I usually just lost interest and move on to something else. If it was a hobby, it didn't matter so much, but when it's been an endeavor that involved other people, I've let them down. Now I'm fearful of losing interest. Did you hear that? There it was. Fear of losing interest. FOLI. Is that a thing? Fear of losing interest. And I'm almost paralyzed in terms of allowing myself to start anything new because I don't want to disappoint any more people or myself. I'm not sure how to deal with that or understand it. In some ways, paring down my activities has been very good. A simple, mindful life with meaningful priorities or family, interpersonal growth, and reading all those books I've wanted to read sounds delicious. I'm not sure, though, if I'm choosing that now because it's a good choice or out of fear, or both. Or maybe I'm too soon in this journey of self-discovery to know. In case it's helpful, the loss of interest I have in mind goes way beyond just being bored or drudgery and is more like a complete lack of purpose for something that previously was a passion. Wow. I read that email and I was floored because she put in an acronym those 4 little words that are paralyzing me in my middle life. It is amazing to me how that resonated. I have a weekly conversation with a dear friend who also happens to be a therapist who also lives with ADHD. And I said, have you ever heard of this thing, FOLI? And he's like, what's that? I said, I don't know. It came up in the ADHD show, comments, and fear of losing interest. And I could hear his jaw drop on the phone. He's like, that describes exactly my experience too. FOLI, fear of losing interest. And it is, I don't know if it's a partner to FOMO, fear of missing out.
It is.
Right?
Yeah, right.
FOMO,
right.
Fear of missing out. And it's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about that, can we?
Well, I have to tell you, when I saw your reply, because you replied back to me before I even had a chance to read it, and you said, I adore this topic. Yeah. And I'm like, ooh, I like the word adore.
Yeah.
So I want to read more about this, right? And so I have to say, I took a lot of time actually reading this, rereading it, and really kind of taking pieces out of it. And it's definitely from a coach's perspective. So what I'm really excited about today's show is it's a little different. And I want you to add something that you don't even know you're adding. I want to add sort of the coach's perspective of this. And then I want you to add in the how this resonates with you and you know, the ADHD perspective of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'll tell you, because there were things that she said in this, you know, 2 to 3 paragraphs that were just so powerful as a coach. I was like, oh, this is so exciting. There's so many great things going on here. So the first thing I want to say is I want to acknowledge her for the awareness that she has around understanding how her ADHD affects her. Because this is an ADHD challenge, right? This fear of losing interest. And when you look at like how this actually started with her, it's, you know, I've started and abandoned many projects, jobs, businesses, even friends. What I love that she's saying, it's, you know, it's not that I've always failed. It's just that she's lost interest. Okay. So that is ADHD, right? She has lost interest in whatever pulled her before. So she's right. It's not about failure. It's just not being able to do something that you maybe necessarily don't care about anymore. And she's learning about her interest level. And if she's not motivated at that moment, or she's not engaged in it, she's losing interest. And I thought it was really, again, so insightful for her to say that if she's lost that purpose, that it really doesn't mean anything. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's, you know, it resonates in so many ways because I think back to the jobs that I've had and the kinds of frustrations that come up, and it's almost like the context, the specific context doesn't matter. It's the emotional context that matters, because the feelings that come with the just becoming suddenly bereft of purpose in the job, in the project, in the thing I was trying to create, in the book I was trying to write, you know, that feeling is for me a black hole, right? I mean, because not only is it something that I've lost interest in, right, on the surface, I'm also judging myself so harshly,
yes,
for my inability to maintain focus. That's the thing that hit me in the chest, right? That's the thing that I found so crushing when I carry FOLI around in my head for too long.
Well, and I just, yes, we're definitely on the same page here, because what I want to go in the black hole for a second, right? I just want to sit there for a second and then we're going to get out of it. But I think that it's a really key part to recognize that black hole when you are trying to navigate your ADHD and you're learning how it's affecting you. And what she's done here, she's identified the pattern, right? She knows that she's losing interest. What you just added is that where's the passion? Where's the motivation? And she's identified the consequences. But this is where I want to get a little deeper, is she talks about disappointing others. And then in the beginning of her paragraph, she says the hobby doesn't matter as much. Well, if I was coaching her one-on-one, I would be digging into that.
Why?
Right? Because exactly what you said. It is so easy to fall into the shame spiral without you even knowing it. So she's saying, it doesn't matter if it's my hobby. But then later in the paragraph, she says, yes, it does, because she doesn't want to disappoint others or disappoint herself.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's what I mean. And definitely doing some work around the limiting beliefs. And so that's why when I read this as a coach, I was like, oh, I'm eating this up because there's so many things here to dissect, and those limiting beliefs of how you are seeing yourself, react to when you lose interest. It's exactly what you were saying.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why I go back to it doesn't matter what the specific context was, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't matter that I just, I have this memory. It was one of my first jobs, and I was working in the technical side of a small consulting firm. And I'll never forget, we got a new employee, and I felt like our email addresses that I was setting up for employees were too formal, right? It was just really long, and we had somebody with a very long name, and it was a wonderful name, but it was like 45 characters long, and first name dot last name I thought was a little much. So I thought, let's go ahead and have them pick their own name or pick their own email address, use a nickname, use something like this. And so I went down that road, and our vice president of operations was a lovely woman, and she and I are still friends this day, but I'll never forget. She said something. She said, no, we want to keep it this way. And I just blew up at her in the office and stormed out because of this stupid email address naming scheme. And it was only years later that I realized that was it. I'd lost purpose in the job. And that was yet another example of me losing interest in the job. And it manifested in this instant sort of like crazy youthful rage.
Yeah.
And, but
I want to do this anyway.
Yeah, I want to do it my way, or because this is the only thing I have to hang on to. And if I can't have this, I have nothing. Yeah. And, and that was just another pattern. But it doesn't matter if it's that in this job or if it's in a hobby or something I want to learn. There was a time where I was super into wines, and I was reading all this about wines, and I just loved learning about it, and then it was gone. And it took all my friends. I kept getting gifts for years because people thought I was super into wine, and I would get books and things. And suddenly I stopped drinking. Like, you guys got to keep up, right? I've lost interest in this.
I've moved on.
And every gift was like this, another symbol of regret that I wasn't able to become an expert kind of, and go get my sommelier certification and all this crazy stuff. But I totally abandoned it. And I felt like I was abandoning a part of myself again. Like the list of those kinds of projects are countless in my life, whether it's hobbies or not. But what is absolutely consistent is the feeling that comes with that abandonment, that losing interest, that feeling that it's not, I wasn't just bored. It was like I let myself down, and everybody else who saw me in a certain light, everybody who saw me as a guy who does a thing now has to change the way they look at me. And I felt deep regret about that.
Which is really interesting because that is what your perception is, but we have to go back to, is that really the truth?
Right.
Is that really what people are going to say about Pete Wright? Yeah. I doubt it. Right? Like, I don't think that if you told me all of a sudden that you're not interested in wine, that I would think, oh my gosh, Pete, really? How could you give this up? Like, wine is the best thing in the world, which is coming from somebody who drinks very little of it. Right. So,
but see, I've gone from like knowing, like knowing vintages and vintners to, does it come in a box?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Drink that wine out of a box. Yeah, but it is interesting. And that's why that's exactly why I picked that out, is that I would definitely be digging in a little bit deeper in this belief, because if we can start shifting your perception and what you, how you feel about abandoning these, or not even, it's not abandoning, it's just losing interest and moving on. Again, it's part of how your brain is wired. And can you imagine the freedom you would feel by letting that go and just accepting it, that it's okay to lose interest. It's okay, to not finish it. I know you're hesitant.
It's kind of, yes, I have thoughts.
Yeah.
I can just keep going.
I'm going to keep going because I still have some coaching things to talk about.
Coach me.
I'm going to I have my coaching hat on today. And I really didn't want to go into like advice, and I kind of feel like I just did, but that's okay. Sometimes it's hard to pull back
Yeah.
on the how-tos, you
Right,
know?
right.
But anyway, what I wanted to say, okay, so we're talking about the limiting beliefs, and we've identified the roadblock of her having this real fear of what's going to happen, like paralyzing her. Do I do something or do I not do it? Because of this fear of losing interest. And she's talking about the decision of, okay, I'm choosing to live a more mindful life. She's choosing kind of what her priorities are. And she's starting to second guess that. So she's wondering, is that really what she wants, or is this fear driving her? And, that's a really important question, right? That we need to ask. And I don't have the answer for her, but I do have some questions that could possibly guide her into finding the answer, because that's really, I think, if it's not just about fear of losing interest. You were talking about the context that that's in.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is about any kind of ADHD challenge that you might be feeling. How do you deal with it? How do you work through it? And so you don't stay stuck, right? And the last sentence that she said was, maybe I'm too soon in this journey of self-discovery to know. Well, I love this. I love how she's packaged it in a way that it is a journey, and she is discovering who she is and how she thinks, and coming to, going through the process to try to figure out what she really wants in this situation. Okay. So before people, because I do have 10 questions here.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a row.
People are going to, like, if you're listening to this on your commute and you're thinking, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm ever going to remember these questions. I am putting them into a blog post. So they will be in a blog post on my website in the show notes, all ready for you to print out. You do not need to write notes on this or anything. But what I do want you to do is think about the questions and think about how you can apply them not only to FOLI, but to any kind of challenge that you might be dealing with, because it really is about self-discovery, and it's not always just the how-tos, right? Because you could have the best strategy in the world, you could have the best intentions in the world, and you're still going to stay stuck. We got to do some reflection, right?
Right.
Got it? All right. I'm preaching to people.
Hallelujah.
Woohoo! All right. So first of all, my first kind of question, or kind of thought, I guess more so than anything, is she shared with us her story. She shared with us what was going wrong. So if you're dealing with an ADHD challenge like this or something else, definitely identify what's happening, what's getting in your way, what are the consequences here. And then I want you to paint a picture of a different story. I want you to actually go onto the other side and think about what this would look like if things were going right. So what if she didn't have this fear? What would that mean to her? And what is it that she really wants out of this situation? That's the second question. So, you're painting the picture of what the future is going to look like for you. And then now you're asking, what is it that I really want? So that's kind of helping you answer that second question. Mm-hmm. Giving you a little bit of framework and homework to do before you get there. Third question is, you got to ask yourself, what makes this important? Because the purpose, right? She's talking about purpose, and that is so important with ADHD specifically. Well, for anybody, you have to have a reason to change something if you don't like it. You have to have motivation to do something different. Otherwise, you're going to keep doing the same thing. So does she want to lose this fear? Then, what makes that important to her? Does she feel like she's being pulled back, or she's not looking at things that she's really curious about because she's fearful of this? And on a side note, one of my coaching groups, we were talking about how fast time goes by as adults. And one of the members was saying that one of the reasons is, as children, everything is new to us, right? So we have all of these wonder moments mm-hmm. where we see things and we're curious about them and they're new. And so the time just tends to kind of go a little bit slower. But as adults, we have less wonder moments.
Oh.
And
see,
so
that's sad.
It is. I thought it was sad too. I think I want more
wonder moments.
I want more wonder moments. And so you got to figure out, that just kind of ties into what makes this important. It's like, if you want more wonder moments, you have to look for them as adults. And that may mean learning about wine because you're curious about it,
Yeah.
or learning a new language because you want to, and maybe not fearing so much of what the outcome is, but just enjoying the journey and the experience as you're doing it at the time that you're doing it.
Well, and that gets to a really important, sort of switch that you can flip, with practice, which is, that it's okay to do something for the love of the thing and not for the outcome. So many people, I'm going to try and,
right?
yeah, well, I'm gonna go to Greece, and so I better learn to speak some Greek. And then suddenly you don't learn to speak any Greek, but you still go to Greece, and it's okay. Like you have to find, like, maybe you just want to learn Greek because you want to learn Greek and you want to expose yourself to an amazing language that opens doors to new ways of learning, history. Maybe it's not tied to a specific trip. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just you're doing a thing for the love of the thing and not for a specific singular outcome. And and when you do that, and this is what I was going to get to, and I'm sorry to hijack your list of questions, but this is what I was please. I find that the older I get, the more able I am at doing this, the greater sort of facility I have at doing this and saying, this is a thing I want to do just for the sake of doing it. And I'm a different guy than I was 20 years ago when I blew up at that VP of operations. Mm-hmm. And now I'm more able to say, to rediscover a purpose when I feel like it's lost. And if I can't rediscover that purpose, then I know that it's time to leave and give myself permission to leave on and move on to something else. But the things that are really important will sneak back in. Yes. And that's the lesson for me that is really important about this, that one of the things that alleviates the fear of losing interest is the sort of reminder that your interest will come back to you in time if it's really important.
It's really important, right?
I go back to this writing thing. I still haven't published this silly book that I keep writing, and I have this. I feel like it's a great idea, and I feel like it's something that kids are going to love, and I haven't finished it. I've gotten busy with other projects, etc. And this FOLI is right here, right? It's mm-hmm. front and center for me right now, mm-hmm. because I'm terrified based on history that this is what I'm going to do. But you know what? Over the years, writing books has always come back around. It has always come back around. It is a thing that I've felt the regret about, and I've always been able to come back to it.
Well, and I'm going to tell you something that I tell my clients when they talk about their history, is that's the old story. Yeah. You have an opportunity to write a new one. You have a new story that can be written. And like you said, it can come back when it's ready to come back. And it doesn't matter what the history was, because like you said, it will form and come back when it's ready. Yeah. And I really think that those kinds of things happen for a reason. I think sometimes they're not meant to be pushed out into the world yet. Yeah. And I think that you'll know when that time is ready, or when it's right.
Absolutely. And it manifests in funny ways, right? There's a neurological component too, which is that your brain is processing even if it's not front of mind. And so when I stop writing, I just had this experience, I play the piano, and I haven't played in a long time. We got this piano in the car. I'll go months where I don't touch it. And then, I think my kids were listening to Dear Evan Hansen, right? The musical, which is, oh my God, tearjerker.
Hansen?
Dear Evan Hansen. It's a Broadway musical.
Oh, I thought you meant like the group.
Oh, no.
I'm like, what?
Not those guys. But anyway, they've come a long way, Hansen. They've come a long way. Anyway, what was I talking about? Dear Evan Hansen.
I don't know now.
It's amazing. It's an amazing musical. It's an incredibly talented group of people who put the show on. And so it was playing on the house speakers, and I thought, hey, I'm going to try and play this. And I sat down and I just played it, and I muscled around with it for a little bit, and I realized, oh my goodness, I haven't played in a long time, and I just sat down and did something totally new that I've never done before in order to reproduce this. I never knew how to do it. I didn't get it, but something was cranking away, and it finally made its way to my fingers, and now I had an outlet. And now, I'm back into the swing of playing every day. Now, I've been playing since I was a little kid, so I know I'm going to come back to this. I know I'll start practicing regularly. I'll learn some new things. I also know that I will lose interest for a few months at a time, and where I won't touch it, I'll get busy. But it'll sneak back in. Music always sneaks back in. And so that's a thing that gives me faith and confidence that it's okay to move through the darkness.
Absolutely. Well, and one thing that I do want to talk about, and I will talk about this in some of the questions coming up, is when it has to do with other people, because I do know that, one of the concerns definitely was disappointing other people that might be going along this journey with her.
Sure.
So the fourth question that I want to ask is, what are your options in regards to these new projects or hobbies? And what I mean by that is when people get stuck in anything, they don't see options. They just see where they're stuck. Or like we just mentioned, they think about their history and they don't think about going forward.
Right.
And so just asking the question, what are your options? It opens up that possibility. It opens up the door of thinking, oh my gosh, maybe there's a different way to think about this. And then the fifth question leads into, what are you willing to change, give up, or do differently?
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And I do have a couple of things to say about this in particular, but I think you can ask this question about any kind of ADHD challenge. But when you're talking about fear of losing interest and you are dealing with other people, I think that the power of the pause is not something that we've talked a whole lot about in this podcast, but it is really important that before you say yes to anything or before you commit to anything is to give you that time to really reflect and think about it. Is this really important to you? Do you have time to do it? Is now the right time to do it? Because we can have lots of things that we want to do, but maybe they don't all have to happen right now. And talk to other people about what you're thinking. If you're really concerned about, what's going to happen here, process out loud. Most ADDers are verbal processors. They need to talk. They need to get their thoughts out so they can think about it, organize them, have that conversation. And then you can certainly set some boundaries around how much time you're going to spend on this, how much money you're going to spend on it. If it's a hobby, how many new hobbies are you going to start at once? I mean, you can certainly kind of set some boundaries around that. But when it comes to other people, be transparent. Be completely transparent with them and let them know, what the expectations are of you, of them. And I know this sounds weird, but have kind of an escape plan. Like if you do lose interest, then, how are you going to deal with that? And be honest with the people that you're working with or that you're, dealing with. Because it is a reality. It can happen. I mean, there's nothing that can just force you to all of a sudden be excited about something.
Well, right. There are external influences at work, and from time to time they'll try to get the better of you, but your moods will ultimately will out.
Yes. The other thing that I want to, and this again is going specifically to her paragraph. I mean, I really like to pick this apart, so I hope she doesn't care. But when she was talking about choosing a more mindful life, is she choosing this because she wants to, or is it out of fear? I think living a mindful life is a beautiful thing, but I think she needs to ask herself what that means to her. What does that mean? Yeah. Does a mindful life mean to her that she pushes other stuff out? I don't know. I mean, so.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't necessarily. It could mean austerity, right? It could mean emotional. It could mean practical austerity. It could mean, pushing things out, getting, being sort of non-committal, right? And not engaging in anything,
right?
For fear of losing interest. And that, I think, is the dark side, right? That's what I was talking about earlier. That's the emotional place. Like, I better not do anything because I'm eventually going to lose interest. But when you turn that around and say, you know what, I'm eventually going to lose interest, I wonder what I'll do next.
Right.
That's a very different kind of framing.
Very different framework. Well, and then I have to say too, as a coach, I'm picking up that she's doubting her decision, right? She's wondering, is this the right decision for me? And so my question has to be then what's missing for her? What's missing that she isn't just saying, I'm living a mindful life and I am happy about it.
Yeah.
So we got to, she has to answer that question. And what needs to happen to fill that void? If something's missing, what is what needs to be filled? Ninth question is, what can you do to make the situation better for you? So now we're kind of getting unstuck and we're starting again to move a little bit forward. And then actually taking that first step is, what are you willing to do? What are you willing, what is that first step for you that you could even start just as soon as today? Like, we're not talking about next week. We're not talking about, next month. What can you do today to kind of get to a place where you're unstuck and actually embracing this ADHD trait? Not trait, because trait is not a good word. I just learned that. I have to tell you that in just a second, what I just figured out. In fact, it's funny that it came out so easily. ADHD characteristic of losing interest. Yeah. So backstory on that. There was I put a post on Facebook, about a book. I haven't read it, but I was curious if any of, my followers had read it. And one of the first comments was she was really put off by the first sentence is because they used the word ADHD trait. And she was like, it's not like, blue eyes. Like, blue eyes is a trait.
It's a trait, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so it was just a reminder of me of that, language and how powerful language is to people, and how some people will perceive that. Some people will read that and not even think anything of it. I said it without even thinking anything of it. But then realizing that, that can be a really strong, negative word for someone. Yeah. So anyway, that's where that came. That's characteristic. Better. Yeah. So I apologize. I didn't mean to offend. So yeah, there you have it.
There you have it. I started looking up FOLI. I wanted to see if we could find another definition. Well, it means foal or stag in in Norwegian, and they're all, it means something in different languages. But what I thought was most interesting is this one, and I think it's actually this is inspirational to me. FOLI in Malinke, in the Malinke language, there's a tribe in West Africa. And to this tribe, FOLI means there is no movement without rhythm. There is no movement without rhythm. And to me, that I actually resonate with that too.
Wow, I do too.
That, in fact, this fear of losing interest is, it's just that, right? It's false. It's fear. It's unfounded. It's nothing has happened yet, right? You don't know what's going to happen. But one thing that is a characteristic of the behavior is the rhythmic nature of it, right? The cycle of it. And every new cycle, there's something new that you can do, and that you're doing, and that you're changing, and that you're growing. And it's a word that means sort of life and movement. And I really like that, and I deeply prefer to associate FOLI with that, understanding what we're defining it to be, this fear of losing interest, which is so brilliant, but also saying, look at the opportunity that comes with that. When you're living with ADHD, there is new life if you choose not to fear it. And so I really like that. Yeah, I really like that. And so I don't know if it means anything or resonates with anybody else, but I find it resonates quite with touching. Us. Yeah, right. There you go. I find it quite touching. There you go. So thank you, Malinke tribe in West Africa. I appreciate
thank you. For our listener for writing such a wonderful paragraph. I just really enjoyed reading it and being able to kind of break it down and share it with our listeners. I just really appreciate that. So thank you.
I do too. Thank you, everybody, as always, for downloading and listening to this show. We appreciate your time and your attention, and particularly your participation. This community is one that I know we cherish very, very much. So thank you so much for being a part of it. And until next time, on behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright. We'll catch you next week right here on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.